Hello and welcome to WION World as One. You're watching Race to Power with me, Hem Korsara, and here's what we've lined up for you on the show tonight. The Moldovan people have spoken, giving an emphatic win to a pro-EU party amid claims of Russian interference, a clear rejection of the perceived and much feared pro-Russia tilt. And in the US, a government shutdown is less than 48 hours away. Will Republicans and Democrats come to a consensus or cost the US economy millions? We'll find out. All right, let's start with Moldova. It has chosen split between a retreat to its past identity and its future. Voters have given the mandate to PAS, the pro-EU party, and have snubbed any Russian slant. With majority of counting complete, the Party of Action and Solidarity has secured 50.2% of the vote share. On the other hand, its political rival and pro-Russia party, the Patriotic Bloc, secured 24.2% of the vote share. The PS thanked Moldovans for a resounding victory, which cements the country's bid to join the European Union bloc and further distance itself from Russia.
We thank you, dear people. Moldova, a country that was tormented for decades, a country unknown, yet it astounded the entire world. And we taught the most important lesson in democracy, that even an aggressor like Russia can be defeated if you fight the strongest thing a country has, with the help of its people. When the state and citizens defend their country, everyone wins. I thank all citizens for defending their country by voting.
The win for PAS has come as a surprise to many, as the party, along with other European stakeholders, accused Russia of meddling in Moldova's elections. While the Kremlin denied the claim, it has now counter-accused Moldova's authorities of preventing thousands of Moldovans in Russia from voting in Sunday's election.
Based on what we see and what we know, we can state that hundreds of thousands of Moldovans were deprived of the opportunity to vote in the Russian Federation, as only 2 polling stations were open for them. Naturally, it was insufficient and did not allow everyone who wanted to vote the chance to do so. That much we can say with certainty.
Now, Moldova's history as a former Soviet Union state and its proximity to Russia has long created a deep divide in its society, where the country's cumulative identity. Moldova is eyeing EU accession by 2030, with the PAS as a majority party in parliament. European Union membership appears closer. But can it stay completely out of Russia's orbit with pro-Russia parties in strong opposition? That, of course, remains the big question. Now, following a decisive win for Moldova's pro-EU party, citizens react to the election mandate. Let's listen to this.
We breathed a sigh of relief. After a long campaign in Romania, and here, which was more complicated than ever, we can finally breathe freely. And I believe that with the help of the current Moldovan government, Moldova will join the European Union with full rights.
Why aren't EU rules respected over here? No one allows such bad things to happen in the EU, but here it was allowed, and that same Europe keeps silent and accuses Russia of meddling. Prove this meddling.
Russia is not doing a lot of good things. It's really bad, and from my parents' experience that lived with Russia when they were little, and my grandma and my grandpa, as I've heard, it's not good with them, and I want to go with Europe because I have a lot of family that is in Germany, Italy, Czechia, and their life is good.
No, there was no rigging, absolutely not. This has been checked so much, it's been talked about so much, no one would have risked rigging it, no one. So the vote was very democratic and beautiful. I'm glad that our Moldova will become a member of the European Union.
Now we have with us Anne Elizabeth Mutet, She is a columnist who specializes in international affairs. She's joining us live from Paris. Thank you so much for joining us on Race to Power.
Here.
Now, of course, let's get right into this. There was, of course, a lot of talk about Russian interference in these elections. There was also a perceived shift towards pro-Russia parties. That being said, the results are out. What is your take on what's happened?
My take on what's happened is that the Moldovans did realize that Russia was trying to influence the elections. One of the candidates in the previous election, this is a rerun of the election because there had been so much strange activity that eventually the election was called again. The candidate who was the pro-Russian candidate was found to have $10 million in cash under his floor in his home and an armory of weapons. It was very obvious that this was something that it should not be the experience of democratic politics. So the election was called again. Russia attacked Moldova in speech. You just mentioned and shown Dmitry Peskov, who's the spokesman of the Kremlin, explaining exactly what they've done to say that that was the opposite, that it was done to them. That's what Russia does. It commits sabotage, and then it says that it is being sabotaged and that Moldova is interfering in Russian affairs. That is a typical Russian playbook. Moldovans remember very well, you saw that young man who was not alive when it was a Soviet nation, and still he had family and national remembrance of what it was like to be ruled by the Russians. As the lady, Mrs. I think Simeonescu, who was speaking, when she also said something that was very important, she said the election in right now is so much watched that it's impossible to rig it, and therefore I respect the result that we have now. Russia has interfered in many places. We know that it's interfering with bombs in Ukraine. We know that it has interfered in elections. It tried to interfere in elections in Romania. It is trying a hybrid approach to reconquering what it views as being its own space ever since the Soviet Union was disbanded.
Now, Ms. Mutet, of course, with this emphatic win for the pro-EU party, what does this also say about the aspirations of the Moldovan people, and what are the challenges that remain ahead? Because as I mentioned earlier, that of course there are pro-Russian parties in strong opposition as well. So what do you have to say about that?
What Moldovans want, they want to join the EU. They have seen what happens when Eastern European countries, former Warsaw Pact members, join the EU, and there's a bitter pill at the beginning because the country has to become competitive, but at the same time, the access to the freedoms of the European Union and the economic freedoms of the European Union mean that those nations develop very well. If you look at Poland, which joined the European Union in 2004. We are now talking about 21 years. In 21 years, it has become a powerhouse, an economic powerhouse. It has become a military powerhouse. And that was not something that could be predicted. If you go back in the past, you can see that when in the 80s, Spain and Portugal, which were somnolent under dictators, eventually managed to join the European Union. The economic development was huge, and therefore, when that young man says there's a good life in the European Union, we Europeans, I'm French, we complain, but it is very obvious that Europe is a beacon of democratic freedom and economic success to a country like Moldova.
All right, Ms. Mutet, thank you so much for joining us on WION World as One with your insights on this. All right, another government shutdown is looming in the United States. There's a partisan divide among congressional lawmakers, but time is running out. As the October 1st deadline approaches, together the Senate and House of Representatives have until Tuesday to pass a bill that allows the government and the federal agencies to function. If the bill is not approved, it will trigger a government shutdown. But the Democrats are vehemently against certain provisions adopted by the Trump administration. After the US President's meeting with Democrat lawmakers got cancelled last week, the majority and minority leaders from both chambers of Congress will be meeting Trump shortly. The meeting will be attended by Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, House Speaker Mike Johnson, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. An Oval Office meet will take place just hours before Senate is expected to vote on a short-term stopgap bill to avert a shutdown. But why are the Democrats opposed to the administration's temporary legislation to keep the government running? Blue camp lawmakers are demanding that Affordable Care Act subsidies be extended and all the budget cuts in Medicaid and other health programs also be reversed. In the US, October 1st marks the start of the fiscal year before a new fiscal year begins. US Congress has to allocate funding to 438 government agencies. However, lawmakers have rarely met this deadline. Instead, Congress routinely passes temporary spending bills to keep the government operating. But the government spending cuts and mass firing under Trump's administration have triggered a standoff between Republicans and the Democrats. The question is, can a shutdown be averted, or will the standoff drag on, causing economic losses worth millions? For more on this, Susan Tehrani is joining us live from New York. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we're just hours away from this government shutdown that we've been talking about. Susan, what can you tell us? What are the challenges that remain?
So the challenges are basically, as you mentioned, from the Democrats, more on healthcare and Medicaid. The Republicans say that Democrats are keen on keeping healthcare and Medicaid for illegal immigrants here in the United States. That's one provision of it that the Republicans are really harping on, and they say that that's really a no-go. Now, while the House did pass a temporary funding bill, the Senate failed to pass it because of these reasons, and now hundreds of thousands of individuals are at risk of losing their job completely or going into furlough. There are going to be some effects if there is a government shutdown. National parks, federal offices, routine agencies, their work will shut down. However, more important agencies like Social Security and the Medicare will continue even if there is a shutdown. But federal courts say that they may not be able to sustain full operation until October 3rd. Nonetheless, we're waiting to see if there is going to be any kind of breakthrough between President Trump and Democrat lawmakers, the leaders of the Democratic Party, as you mentioned. Once that meeting takes place, I think we'll get a better understanding if we're heading into a shutdown or not.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. We'll, of course, continue to track this. Now, New York mayoral race, it's narrowed down to 3. It is now fight between Democrat Zohran Mamdani, Independent Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa. The fourth candidate and incumbent Mayor Eric Adams has opted out of the race. In a video posted on his social media account on X, Adams announced his decision of withdrawing his campaign. Adams said he's aware about the polls and what the polls are saying, and he can't continue the re-election bid.
I also know some remain unsure of me after the unfortunate events surrounding my federal case. I was wrongfully charged because I fought for this city. And if I had to do it again, I would fight for New York again. And yet, despite all we've achieved, I cannot continue my re-election campaign.
With Eric Adams out, Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa are the ones who are vying for the New York mayor's post. Reacting to Eric Adams' decision to opt out, Democrat candidate Mamdani has said that it is time for the election to be focused on the New Yorkers.
We have seen over the course of this race, especially in the final weeks and months of the primary, that Andrew Cuomo wanted nothing more than a one-on-one fight with me. And we gave him exactly that, and then we beat him by 13 points. And we continue to be just as confident. And yet what separates us from these other candidates is that we're not focused on them. We're focused on New Yorkers.
Now, Zohran Mamdani has stayed on top of this race for long now. According to the latest polls, Mamdani is inching closer to 50% mark with 47% backing currently. Next candidate in line, Andrew Cuomo, there. He is 18 points behind Mamdani at 29%. Republican candidate Curtis is on a distant third with 11% support. New Yorkers will head to polling stations on the 4th of November. The elections will be held under preferential voting system. The last candidate will be eliminated if no one secures more than 50% in the first round. Subsequently, their vote will then be distributed among remaining frontrunners on the basis of preferential votes cast. In short, consecutive rounds take place until one candidate secures more than 50% votes and is then, of course, declared the winner. Now, UK's ruling Labour Party is holding an annual conference. The gathering comes at a time when the party is facing an unprecedented dip in popularity, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer himself fights a downward spiral in approval ratings. Starmer urged Labour to stay united in what he called the fight for our lives. Starmer's remark directly correlates to the rise of Reform UK, the party that polls suggest is set to dethrone Labour in next elections. Starmer also attacked Nigel Farage's immigration policy, calling it quote-unquote racist and immoral. Starmer pinned the blame of Reform UK's rising popularity on Conservatives. The British Prime Minister's comments come in the backdrop of unprecedented rise in support for Nigel Farage's Reform Party. According to the latest poll conducted by YouGov, Nigel Farage is on his way to the 10 Downing Street if elections were to be held today. Reform UK would secure 311 seats in the House of Commons, that is just 15 seats away from the majority mark. Reform has effectively taken the place of primary Conservative political force in the UK. Tories, who ruled the country for 14 years before Starmer, have now slipped to the fourth position. The political agenda that Nigel Farage is riding on is straight out of the Conservative playbook. He is banking on an anti-immigration sentiment to propel him to power, an issue that has managed to gain traction in recent times. With Tories effectively out of the race, Starmer and Labour Party are now focusing on countering Nigel Farage. But will Starmer be able to renew and revive his premiership? Or, as there is a chatter going on in Labour ranks, will the party look beyond him? A deadly stampede in India's Tamil Nadu on Saturday has sparked a political storm. Actor-turned-politician Vijay's party that held the rally where the stampede happened has blamed the Tamil Nadu government for conspiracy and deliberate police lapses. Vijay is demanding a federal probe into the incident. A campaign rally on Saturday in Tamil Nadu's Kurur district had turned into a sight of horror. 27,000 people thronged the site to get a glimpse of actor Vijay. A stampede broke out, killed at least 41 people and injuring over 100 others. Tamil Nadu police gathered 3 close aides of Vijay with culpable homicide and negligence. Eyewitness accounts, put the blame on delay in arrival and lack of security arrangements.
As evening approached, the crowd kept increasing. Normally, Vijay waves to the public at the bypass junctions, but this time he did not. Disappointed, people waiting there rushed to the meeting venue to hear his speech. People wanted to catch a glimpse of him. With vehicles parked on both sides of the road, the situation became more complicated, and there was a massive crowd.
The actor himself, an opponent of the ruling DMK, has blamed a deliberate conspiracy and lapses on the part of police to sully his image ahead of elections. The DMK has rejected charges, saying it does not want to politicize this incident. The state's Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has appointed a commission headed by a retired judge to investigate the incident.
Lot of disinformation circulating on social media regarding the Karur tragedy. Irrespective of party affiliations, those who died are our Tamil people. In this hour of grief, let us avoid such irresponsible posts. Once the GOVT-appointed committee retired judge's report is out, we will formulate guidelines on how to conduct such events or gatherings. It is our collective duty to ensure that such incidents don't recur.
BJP leader K. Annamalai has come out in Vijay's support. He said that it is for the state police and the intelligence to anticipate the crowd and then deploy the police force adequately. He has also demanded CBI probe while questioning the Chief Minister for appointing a one-man inquiry commission to probe the incident. According to the Tamil Nadu DGP in charge, G. Venkatraman, organizers asked for a venue anticipating a crowd of about 10,000, but more than double of the anticipated crowd turned up at the event. Peru is on the edge. Thousands of Gen Z protesters have taken to the streets, voicing their dissent against Dina Boluarte's government and the new pension scheme. Tensions continue to flare in the heart of Lima, where agitated protesters violently clash with the police, injuring at least 19 people, including an on-duty officer. Youth protesters threw stones, petrol bombs and fireworks at law enforcement, who in turn responded with tear gas and rubber bullets. Overnight clashes turned into riots as hundreds of demonstrators marched en masse towards the Peruvian Congress. Visuals from the ground show furious protesters trying to remove the metal fences and barriers protecting the Congress building.
We are calling for change. We want them, the politicians, to leave and for new people to come in. Because the way things are right now, I don't think it's right for the same people to continue.
The priority right now is that if there are young people who have that intention, then we need to call on others so that we can get together, organize ourselves, unify what we are looking for, what we want, and then we can truly make, let's say, a strong impact, a truly effective change in our country.
As protests entered day 4, Gen Z agitators were joined by transport and merchant unions voicing outrage over deepening corruption, scandals, economic insecurity and a deadly lack of accountability as well. The protests also saw fury reignite over the killing of demonstrators by security forces when President Boluarte took power in late 2022. Over the past 6 months, protests in Peru have intensified, marked by a surge in extortion and organized crime. Unrest continues to brew over Boluarte's government controversial law, forcing young people to pay into private pensions. This as job insecurity continues to haunt the youth, with an unemployment rate topping 70%. All right, let's just take a look at other stories making headlines across the globe. Germany's ruling party has secured major victory in local elections. Chancellor Merz's Christian Democrats have secured victories in Dortmund, Leverkusen and Bielefeld despite lagging behind in national polls. SPD celebrated victories in Cologne and other cities. The far-right AfD, that is gaining significant ground across Germany, failed to secure any victories in local elections, and this comes at a time when Chancellor Merz is facing a huge dip in popularity. According to polls, 2/3 of Germans do not approve of his performance so far. Self-proclaimed Trumpist and peacemonger Andrej Babis is leading the race for Czech Republic's Prime Minister. He is running on anti-immigration EU skeptic platform. He has previously served as country's Prime Minister and now has 30% support, just ahead of the polls on the 3rd of October. In the European Parliament, Ano is part of the far-right Patriots for Europe faction, which Babis himself co-founded with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Campaigning for presidential election has officially begun in Cameroon. 92-year-old President Paul Biya is seeking an unprecedented 8th term. Biya has ruled for 43 years, is the world's oldest leader still in power and could remain until nearly 100 if re-elected on the 12th of October. 11 opposition candidates are also on the ballot, all looking to dethrone the world's oldest leader in power. And with that, we call to wrap on this edition of Race to Power. News and updates will continue on the other side on WION World is One. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street
to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets. WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Vielleicht nur als Impulsland.
Welcome to WION Fine Print. We are glad you're watching WION Wild as One. American Joker, the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin calls up 135,000 men for routine military service, the country's biggest autumn conscription drive since 2016. Ukrainian FPV drone shoot down a Russian attack helicopter in Donetsk Oblast. This is the second such incident after Ukraine brought down an Mi-28 chopper in August last year. Russian embassy's deputy chief in India says that BrahMos missiles have an absolutely unlimited potential for upgrade. President Donald Trump will push Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to an elusive Gaza peace plan in high-stakes talk at the White House. Reports say at least one person dead and several others injured in a firing during massive protests against government in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Opposition alleges forces fired on protesters. British soldiers learned to fight in Kenya in training sessions culminating in a simulated assault involving 1,000 troops.